Howdy, howdy. My name is Carrie Dills, and welcome to Office Hours FM episode number 79. Today, I've got Eric Ham in the house, the founder of Cobalt Apps, which you may know more from the Dynamik website builder or the Genesis Extender plugin. We are going to be chatting with Eric about all sorts of things. Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Yeah, it's been... I was looking episode 6. So the last time you came on, this show was still a little bit rough around the edges. I mean, not that it's real polished now, but it was rougher. So yeah, glad you get to come back on and chat with us again.
Definitely.
For those of you who are tuning in live, there are a couple of ways you can participate. One is on Twitter. You can tag your questions or comments with hashtag OfficeFM, and we will discuss those on the show. Or if you are watching this via Google Plus or via the Google Hangout, you can use the Q&A section there, and we will get to those. So, all right. So, Eric, for those of you, or for those who have not met you yet and don't know what you do, give us the rundown, the story of Eric.
Sure. So yeah, about 6 years ago, in 2008, I started, I guess it'd be around 7 years ago, I started blogging. I got a book on blogging, and I read an article from, that was, they had interviewed Darren Rouse, a pro blogger, and all that kind of stuff. And I started a blog called motivatethyself.com, and it was like a motivational blog, and that was like a real big thing back then, all the kind of self-help motivational type stuff, but it wasn't like self-help, but you know what I mean, because this was the era of Zen habits. I mean, obviously he's still around, but that was when he was really first got big and everything. And I was trying to transition out of I had my own computer business where I'd go to, for about 5.5 years, I'd do on-site computer service and in my town. And it was great when the real estate bubble was expanding, because I had a ton of real estate companies that I would go to their offices and do all their computer work. And then the bubble burst, and my business was like cut in half. And so I was trying to transition out of that, and I wanted something more, give me more freedom and everything. And so I started blogging, and I figured I would start a blog, and I'd make a full-time living off of Google ads. So after, my first $10 paycheck after 6 months of blogging or whatever, I realized I needed to do something different. And that's not to say that you can't do that, but just for me, it did not happen. And so I started doing WordPress web design, and Leo Babauta, I always have trouble, of Zen Habits, he kind of helped me get kind of into that arena. He put an ad on his site on Zen Habits, and it was actually interesting. I know this is kind of all random stuff, but I think this is interesting for anybody that does kind of advertising or anything. This was actually when Zen Habits used to have a sidebar, and in that sidebar they used to have a bunch of ads, or he used to have a bunch of ads. And then he was going to try something new. He was going to try one ad on his sidebar, and that was it. And I was his first ad. And so I don't know if you can imagine, I don't know, back then I think his site was getting, I don't know, 1 or 2 million hits a month or something crazy. It was just crazy at the time. And so I was getting, like, instantly I had full-time web design business. Within the first couple of weeks, I was completely overrun with jobs and everything. And so it was interesting because there was just so much power with this one single ad on this big site. And so anyway, after about 2 months of really hating web design, I just did not like the direct, constant, like, back and forth, and can you do this, and can you adjust this, and that just wasn't my thing. I had created a theme called Frugal Theme, and from there I was using that theme for my own web design projects. People started emailing me saying, hey, I like your theme, how do I get that? And I started giving it away for free, and then I started doing a newsletter sign up to try to get something out of it. And then finally somebody said, why don't you just turn it into a premium version and sell it? So I started doing that, and instantly I really took to that. I really liked I develop the tool, and then I sell it to the web designer, and I sell it to the business owner or the blogger or whatever. I'm an introvert, so that was I preferred that kind of thing, and I enjoyed coding and everything like that. So I started doing that, and within a few months, I was I changed my ad from web design to frugal theme on Zen Habits, and I got lots of good business from that, and kind of from there it took off, and I eventually transitioned Frugal over to Catalyst, the Catalyst framework, which had the dynamic child theme. And then eventually, as I saw Genesis kind of become more and more prominent, and I really liked the simplicity of their framework and everything, and I wanted to focus more on what Dynamik did and less on just the core framework, I transitioned over to Genesis, and that's where I came up with Dynamic Website Builder and Genesis Extender plugin. I basically took my tools from Catalyst and kind of plugged them into Genesis, and that's where I've been for the last couple of years. So
awesome. That is quite a journey. This is maybe a random aside, but do you have any idea what the percentage conversion was on that ad? Off of the
from Zen Habits, it was crazy. It was, I don't know the exact numbers, but I do know it was way higher. I mean, I've done, ads on Pro Blogger. I've done ads on, different sites in the past, and it was ridiculous. And I think it was because Leo had such a loyal following. And I think the difference is when you have somebody that's really like Leo was the blog. I mean, there was, he was very honest and very, he wasn't a salesman or anything. So anytime he promoted anything, even if it was an ad, I think people really took it to heart and were kind of sold instantly. Like they didn't question it or anything. So I just felt like anybody that would come over with the ad, they weren't asking questions. They were kind of like, where do I sign up? If Leo's going to say you're good, then, I'm sold. So what can you do for me or whatever? So I think it was a really unique situation. A lot of times when people ask me, how did you transition so quickly into a full-time income from, either web designer or theme developer, I always mention the fact that I had a kind of a unique situation that you can't like duplicate that. There's no like step process that you could take to duplicate that kind of thing. It was just kind of right place, right time thing.
Yes, but I think there's still a takeaway there that anybody could do, and that's you found a partnership that was a really good fit, a place where you knew that your ad would get a lot of eyeballs and
right
from a trusted source. And that's something that, sounds like yours kind of unfolded naturally, but certainly something somebody else could attempt to do. Sure.
Well, yeah, for example, like Leo, he was really, he knew at the time I just had my first son, and he was really, I don't know why. He's a nice guy. Because he was really trying to be helpful to me. I had a motivational blog. He was really into motivation, but into other things as well. And so I think there was definitely that common ground there. And he would do guest posts on my blog, and I would do guest posts on his blog. But he actually, for example, he let me convert his site over to Frugal. So for a while, Zen Habits was running off of my theme as a way. And even he had the little Frugal link on the bottom that he let me have there. I got tons of traffic from just that little footer link, which was, again, just not common. So yeah, no, definitely, there's no doubt that I was able to build that kind of friendship, partnership with someone who had there was a natural fit there. And he, I always just assumed that he, for some reason, wanted to help me out. Cause you know what I mean? It was at the time, it was like Leo was way up here and I'm this little guy down here. And there was really no benefit to him. I felt like, maybe I added something to him, or whatever, but I felt like for the most part, he was being really helpful to me. But I would say as far as a takeaway, definitely, I tried initially to be as helpful to him as I could be, for example, I think one of the first times that I connected with him on a more personal level was when somebody had posted on a blog comment that they needed help with something on their blog. And because it was one of Leo's loyal readers, I popped in and just said, hey, I'd love to help you out. What can I do for you? And he saw that. And then he contacted me and was like, hey, I really appreciate you being so helpful. Let me know if I can ever do anything for you. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like, so I think, it's just one of those things where it's just common courtesy and everything like that. And then, like you said, there was kind of a natural connection that allowed us to help each other out. But I just feel like he helped me out way more than I could have helped him out. But, hey.
It's good to have benefactors in that sense.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're pretty firmly ensconced in the products side of things, and I think for myself and a lot of the folks who listen to the show that are in the services side, man, the grass looks so much greener over there in products. Oh, you don't have to deal with clients. Of course, your customers are in a sense your clients, but
sure.
I guess I would love to hear some of your experiences in starting up your products, evolving them, which you've kind of touched on that just a little bit, and then maybe some advice for people who want to try their hand at selling a theme or putting up a premium plugin or whatnot. So yeah, and other things too. I can't say them all at once though. So
yeah. Okay, so I think first of all, yes, I can understand the grass being greener. I think what it comes down to is like I think you can tell me if you agree or disagree, but I think it's easier to make money through services than products. But it's, if you can get to, and what I mean, I'll clarify that in a second. If you can find a product that you can provide that's unique enough, that has a draw, and you can actually make money, then there's huge benefits to it. So when I say easy, what I mean is, I don't mean easy like work. I mean like it's because it's hard, because like you said, the actual services of like working with, it can be, the daily grind of, connecting with the client and working with them, and, they've got issues, and some clients are like, wow, we didn't, that was smooth, and they paid me on time and whatever. And then there's some other clients that are just like, I don't want to do this anymore. But I think the fact that we can connect with somebody and say, hey, this is what I do, and I can do this for this much money. I think there is a natural connection there that you can make, and you can kind of do that. Whereas with the product, it's harder to get into it, because you'll come up with some idea for a plugin, and then you'll go to the repository, and there's like already 10 plugins that are way better than you even thought you could do, and they're all free, and you're like, okay, well, that idea is done, and so then you come up with something else, and then you realize that your idea is really not as doable as you think, or the develop, you have to pay somebody else to do it, and what's the point, whatever. I'll give you a perfect example. I've come up with a few things over the last couple years. Actually, the last 6 years when I was developing, there's been several products where I've developed the product, got it to to a certain point, and then either right before or right after launching, just completely canned it, because it was like something about it just it wasn't worth, even if you could make a few sales, it wasn't going to be worth the support and all that kind of stuff. So it is really challenging. I think one of the unique things again about my situation is that a little bit of history. For example, when I started Frugal, when I made it premium, I did all the kind of no coding design options, right? I did like the color pickers and the kind of the just all the kind of no coding stuff. And that might seem like nothing now, but 6 years ago, there was really nobody doing that except a few people. For example, Thesis, I'm sure you're familiar with Thesis or whatever. That I think that the most that he had was maybe like a few color pickers on the nav bar, and that was it. And everything else was you had to go to this custom functions file and do a bunch of coding, and people didn't know what to do. Headway wasn't even out yet. Headway was, they were coming out a few months after I came out with Frugal. And so it was one of those things where this was kind of like the pioneering days of no coding design options. And I remember I had so many people come to me and they're like, this whole no coding thing is never going to take on, people, they would always say that people either want to pay somebody else to do it for them, or they are a coder, and so they're going to want to do the coding. But that this idea of this middle ground where you have these do-it-yourselfers that want to do the development, but they want to have some help with these kind of no coding design options. They're like, that's just not a market. There, you just need to, And so that was kind of the struggle at the time, but it caught on really quickly because, as you can imagine, at the time there were so many people that were so sick of like either paying a developer all this money or having to figure out what to do with this custom functions file. And so it was really appealing to have that. And so I kind of created this like bridge between the non-developer but kind of power user that wanted to kind of do stuff, internet marketers. And so it kind of caught on. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was able to get a customer base pretty quickly. But now there's so much out there. It is really tough to find, even for myself, to find new products. It's really hard because, like I said, I mean, you can come up with an idea and you can go to the repository and there's so many great products that people just give away. And you're just like, wow. So I think, I guess if I were to give any kind of advice about the kind of products versus services, I think it really just comes down to, for me personally, it didn't take me long at all to realize that like I just did not enjoy the like services aspect of it. I just didn't. Really quickly, it was stressing me out so much and I didn't enjoy it. And so I feel like if that's the case, then you should do whatever you can. If you really are passionate about, coming up with products, or you want to kind of get into that, then maybe if you're a developer, there you go. Or if you need to kind of, find a developer and kind of work with it. But if you enjoy working with other people or whatever, then I would just say it's tough. Like it's really hard to get into the product side and actually make as good of money as you could probably make with services and everything. I don't know.
Yeah, there's certainly a longer ramp up time to actually seeing a paycheck with products and there is with services. And
right.
I also, and I mean, I don't have a lot out there, but after just doing a couple of themes, realizing that what goes into code that you distribute is very, very different from something that you do for a one-off client site.
Right.
The time investment is just infinitely more significant.
Well, because for one, you have to account for lots of different possibilities, right? Like
Yep.
when you're doing coding for a market, you have to account for, this person might want to do this with this theme. This person might want to do this. When you're doing it for a specific client, they want their sidebar to be exactly this way. And so you code it that way and it's done. Right. But like you said, the effort that you're putting into this product that can be distributed among many people and useful among many people takes a lot of work. And then there's support, and then there's, all that kind of different stuff. And, so yeah, you have to have enough revenue from that to make it worth that effort.
Do you have, are you your support team, or do you have folks?
I'm like the higher level support. I've got two people specifically that I pay and that have been, one of them specifically has been kind of on our team for probably 5 years now or so. And basically when people, they go to these guys, 9 times out of 10 will know the answer or whatever. And if they don't, though, they'll just shoot it to me, and then I can, help. So I definitely do support every day, but I probably take a small percentage of the kind of higher level stuff. And then of course we have a forum, and there's a couple people in the forum that are super helpful, that just help each other out and stuff like that. So there's kind of the filtration. We've got a knowledge base that's pretty in depth too. So it's kind of like people come, they log into their account, and they can go to the knowledge base, they can go to the forum, and then they can email us directly as well. So there's enough of that in place, and then there's a couple people on our team with support that we kind of balance it out and everything.
I do. It's been a while since I submitted. I mean, probably a couple of years since I sent anything through your support form. But I do remember that you personally responded, and that it was very quick. And I've always thought since then in my mind, Cobalt Apps equals really great customer service. So Devinder has a question. He says, with the rise of page builders, will that change your future product offering? Like where do page builders fit into Dynamik or Extender?
Right. So, okay. So like with Dynamik specifically, Dynamik, I think at its core is not a page builder. It's a general website builder. For example, it designs, the color scheme, the typography, and just kind of the overall structure and design of the site. Then it does offer some tools for building out like your static homepage if you want to do that, or doing like custom widget areas and custom code and things like that. But within the last year or so, I mean, I'm sure many people know, there's been several like third-party premium page builder plugins that have come out that are just great, right? I mean, they're powerful, they're drag and drop, they offer tons of flexibility, and they make it so you can do pretty much anything, as far as structure wise with a page, really quickly and efficiently. And none of them are perfect. I mean, some of them add like a gazillion divs, and some of them are kind of slow, and some of them don't have very many widget areas to like offer, while other ones do. And there's there's no perfect one, but there's a couple out there that I think are really good overall. So I think what's happened for me is I got to the point where when these page builders came out, I saw them and I was like, I have a choice. I can either spend tons of time to try to reinvent the wheel and basically compete with these page builders, or I can try to make Dynamik more, I guess, capable of utilizing those page builders and make it more compatible. So that's what I had done recently with one of the updates. Is I had added a custom page template to Dynamik and added a few things to it to make it more compatible with some of the popular page builders. And because my point, I guess, with that is that Dynamik plus a good page builder, I think, is a good combination. Not so much Dynamik is replaced by a page builder kind of thing. So if Dynamik was basically a page builder, then I would have to, I would say then at that point I got to figure out how to compete with these page builders. But I think a lot of people have found that they're actually a good combination, because Dynamik is kind of that initial coat of paint, and the page builder comes in afterwards and can do kind of custom pages and things like that. Even down to the point, I know there's like a website called, I think it's called dynamicbeaver.com or something. And it's Dynamik and Beaver Builder combined, and it's just somebody that thinks there's such a great combination that they even created a website with tutorials on how to use the two products together, things like that. So what was the original question though?
You know what? I don't know, but I was enjoying listening to your answer nonetheless. How will page builders affect your product? And it sounds like
okay, right. And so so I guess what it comes down to is, at this point in time, I guess the best way to answer is, at this point in time, I'm more interested, and that's what I've been doing, is just making Dynamik as compatible with these other products as possible, seeing them as a good combination, not so much seeing them compete with each other, though there is overlap. I mean, there's no doubt there's overlap on some, Dynamik does some of the things that the page builders do, and page builder do some of the things that Dynamik does. There is some overlap there, but there's enough difference to where I feel like they're two products that are really good together instead of competing with each other. So.
Cool. I'm hoping to actually get the Beaver Builder guys on here in later this month or later this fall.
Yeah.
Got a question from Melanie. She wants to know, are there any new features coming to Dynamik? That's the first one. And secondly, are you planning on any new Dynamik skins?
Yeah, I think one of my main focuses over the next coming months and everything is going to be mostly skins, because I know that's something that a lot of people have wanted. I pushed out like 8 new skins about 2 months ago, or no, 4. I think it was maybe 4. I can't remember, but it was several new skins. And but I know that's one of the things that a lot of the members are really looking for, is more skins. So I think that's going to be one of the things I'm going to be focusing more on over the coming months. As far as new features, I've been at a point where I've got several things on my list that'll probably be coming soon, but I haven't decided exactly which I'm going to work into the coming updates. But I've been kind of letting them naturally come. I don't have any like master plan at the moment as far as incorporating some major new feature there, but it just seems like over the last several months, there's been kind of a natural progression of moving in certain directions. So at the moment, I don't, but like I said, mostly skins, and then there are a few features that'll probably make their way over the next couple months. So.
All right, and a clarification question from Paul: is a dynamic skin a child theme off of Dynamik, or I guess in this case a grandchild? Or
Right, exactly. All right, let me talk about skins real quick. All right, because this is kind of my sell on skins, right? So the reason skins are great is because you've got WordPress as the platform, you've got Genesis as the framework, and Dynamik as the child theme. Okay, and we all are roughly comfortable with that or familiar with that. So what a skin is mostly just Dynamik has hundreds of no coding design options, and if you want to go in there and just bang away and come up with your own design through those no coding design options, that's great. That's what a lot of people do. What a skin is it basically instantly pre-customizes those options for you to create a certain design. So for example, let's say a professional designer goes in and makes all those tweaks themselves and then spits out a skin, which is just a simple zip file. Then when the end user has a skin, they import it, and it just basically makes their design options exactly the way that the designer made them before they spit out the skin. And so you basically import a custom design. But what makes it unique to, say, a traditional child theme is that you can then go in and continue to tweak it using the no coding design options. So in other words, instead of installing a pre-customized hard-coded child theme, which then you have to go in and open up this big style sheet and start editing code to make changes, you actually can make all your edits through these no coding design options. Now I say all, it's not necessarily, it's like 95% or whatever. There also is, skins do have their own, or can have their own, custom styles, functions, and scripts files. So if somebody wants to take it further than the no coding design options can offer, they can start making a few customizations using those files. But even those, you can actually go into the design options page, you go into the skins page, and on the active skin, which looks like the appearance themes page on, in WordPress, but it's, so on the active skin screenshot, there will be a CSS, PHP, and JS button. You just click the button and it pops open an editor with syntax highlighting and line numbering and everything, and you've got your custom files right there that you can tweak without having to use like FTP and things like that. So even beyond the actual no coding design options, you can do customizations through files and stuff like that. So basically, skin, it's kind of like a child theme, but if you are utilizing those no coding design options, it has a lot of advantages.
Cool. Thank you for that clarification. And I also just tweeted a link from the Office Hours FM Twitter account. Of course, you tweet from a Twitter account. I don't know why I said that, but the differences between kind of a comparison of Dynamik, which is a theme, and Extender, which is a plugin that has a lot of the features from Dynamik. But anyways, check that out if you're not familiar with them. Let's see. Okay, we're about at our half hour mark, so let me do a quick howdy and hello to those of you who have joined us midway through. You are listening to Office Hours episode number 79 with Eric Ham, and I'm very glad that you're tuning in today. We're talking about products, Eric's products, and also, so let's just go into what I originally was very curious to follow up with you on. So last year when you were on the show, you had your pricing model was flat. You just, one-time fee, you own it for life. And about this time last year, you changed your pricing model to be a subscription. And I'm curious, one, how is that received by your customers or potential customers or existing customers? Two, has that been a positive move in terms of onboarding new customers? And number three, now that you've had that full year for people to start re-upping, are they re-upping? So we can I can repeat those questions when we get to them.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So I'm trying to think. Like I said, from the beginning, the beginning of before we went live, I really want to share anything that I can in this area, because this is something where I would have loved to have had somebody to kind of, answer kind of these questions before I started doing this, so I would kind of know, what not to do and what to do. Because I've made some good decisions and I've made some really bad ones, and the bad decisions kind of bite you in the butt, and then you just kind of have to live with them or piss off your customers. So and I'll explain what I mean. But okay, so first of all, one of the things I did with all my products, like with Frugal moving to Catalyst, and the Catalyst, kind of transitioning over to Genesis, you can argue either way, whether it was smart to do this or not. But what I did is I grandfathered everybody in every single time. So I've got people that maybe paid me, $60 6 years ago for Frugal, and they have owned every product, every theme from there, and they can still email me and I will give them support as if they just paid me $200 yesterday or something, so it's one of those things where I have, so when I grandfathered everybody in with all these different things, there was, right before I did the subscription model, I had a 2-week sale. And the reason I did this wasn't to make money. It was to make it so nobody could come to me and say, hey, you kind of flipped the script on me. I bought this, thinking it was going to be, or I was going to buy this thinking it was going to be a one-time thing. And then now you're saying it's a yearly thing. So I was basically saying, look, I'm giving you a chance to buy now and buy into lifetime. And so I went ahead and gave like 2 weeks for that. And I made about 3 months worth of sales in about 3 weeks, because like everybody was like, anybody that was thinking about buying was like, okay, I'm just going to buy it, even if I may never use it, because if I don't, then I'm going to have to be into this yearly thing. And so that was good. But then about 3 or 4 months after, sales were cut like in half. So it was kind of, it all was like washed out, basically I made all the money up front, and then it kind of, made up for the several months of lower sales. But basically what it came down to was, I knew that I was at a point where I had to make that decision. I had to go to the licensing, and I mean, you could argue one way or the other, but after year after year after year of making that one sale and then supporting the same person forever and not getting any money from them ever again, it just didn't make any business sense. And then once I started seeing more and more people going that route, I realized that, it just made sense to do. I personally, and I think probably most people would probably agree with this, I don't like licenses. I mean, even as a theme developer, I don't like having to mess with licenses, but especially as a customer, I just prefer not to have to activate something. If I buy it, I just want to own it and everything. So from that perspective, I just assume not do it, but it just makes business sense. The other thing, of course, is pirating. Like, Dynamik was, I figure if somebody's going to buy your product, they're probably going to buy it anyway, or they're not, I don't think you're losing too many sales from like stuff, but that does kind of cut down somewhat on that as well. But basically, I guess to give some basic general like numbers, what I found was that ultimately sales revenue stayed about the same, but sales went down. So, and the reason that happened was because, or the reason that could happen is because it used to be a single price and it was a low price, and now it's 3 prices, it's 3 tiered, and it's subscription. So a single purchase could be 2 or 3 times what the original purchase was, but there's less of those. So I guess from about a year of doing this, I think what I found is that you can have more customers, or you can have more customers and make X amount of money, or you can have less customers and make the same X amount of money. And for some people, it might be more beneficial for their business to have more customers. Like they might be able, like I'll tell you right now, for Genesis, for example, Genesis is StudioPress sells Genesis and it's a one-time thing, right? But that's kind of their funnel into their subscription products. You know what I mean? Like they've got their own hosting, they've got, they've got SEO products, they've got other products that are subscription based. And so Genesis is kind of a nice funnel into that system. And I'm not saying that that's like a scheme or anything. I think it's great. But the point is just to say that even those who have kind of like no licensed products generally have some down the road in their sales process are going to have some kind of yearly subscription, because that is what's going to bring in that consistent revenue. So for me, because I only have, 2 products that are, that I sell at this point in time, they both are subscription based. And so I would say for now, I would have done it again. I wouldn't have done it any differently. Are they continuing? Are they renewing? Of course, not 100% are renewing. What I find is that a decent amount are renewing, and then I can tell maybe a few months after their subscription has lapsed, but they need support. So they'll just go ahead and renew when they need support, and then that gives them another year of support and updates and things like that. So for the most part, it's playing out like it should, as far as if somebody, I guess the way I look at it is if somebody buys the product and then never, ever comes to us for support and doesn't need updates after that first year, that's fine. They've given me that money for that year and whatever. I think the key is, if somebody's going to utilize our support resources and my continued development, efforts and everything, it makes business sense that they continue to give me some money to kind of continue to support my business and things like that. But what I was saying about with the grandfathering in, I would say I think we have, 6,000 or 7,000 customers that are like lifetime, and so and that's totally fine. But it's one of those things where hindsight, I would have preferred to have gotten subscription going day one. And then even if that number was way lower, at least I would have all my customers be, just a yearly supporting my company while I support their businesses through my efforts and things like that. So, it played out the way it played out. But, overall, I definitely wouldn't have changed any of the things that I've done up to this point.
I really like that you said you can make X amount of money from a ton of customers or X amount of money from just a few customers.
Right.
And that's so very true. As just a side note, StudioPress is actually looking at changing over to a subscription model for Genesis, which it makes sense, because think about the volume of support that they deal with on that product. And a $60, $70 product over, sure, I could just imagine even sales funnel to their hosting and other products.
I hope they do. No, that's great. I would prefer that they would, because what happens is you have people that are like, well, Genesis isn't subscription. Genesis is one-time thing. Why are you a subscription? And I don't get that question too often, but I think anytime you can have the products that are working together kind of be in line with each other in several ways, especially something like that, it's a good thing. So no, I hope they become a subscription model, because I do think that makes sense, and it would be great in general, for sure. It totally makes sense.
Yeah, and it sounds like pardon me, or not sounds like, there have been a kind of a changing of the tides in the WordPress product space, that people are shifting over to that licensed model. And I'm so glad, because it helps kind of increase the value for everyone.
Yeah. Well, just one side note, another reason and this is just my opinion, but I think another reason that it's happened over the last couple of years too, is because there have been better and better products that for licensing your products. So I use Easy Digital Downloads, with Pippin Williams, and that I know a lot of people use that, and it just makes it so easy to basically plug into your product, and then all of a sudden you have licensing. You've got automatic updates. I mean, it works so well. And I think what happened is people were like, okay, I need to be doing licensing, but how do I do that? And I think in the past you had to come up with some custom solution, and that made it more difficult as well. So I think it was a combination of the business sense, but also people were saying, people are started producing solutions for that as well. And like you said, yes, it also makes the premium WordPress product, arena kind of more legit and more sustainable, which is really good.
Yeah, that's a great point about the tools coming into play at that right time. And yes, Pippin's, the easy digital downloads licensing is what I'm using for my theme, and it's so seamless, and it integrates with everything, even down to Help Scout.
Yes.
Is that what you use for handling support?
Yeah, I use Help Scout for the email support, and then I use their docs, which is where I get the knowledge base, and that integrates. And they even have something that they just came out with. I'm totally blanking on what they call it, but you can literally. And I was thinking about adding this to my products, but I got to check and see if it uses resources on the server side or on the client side. But it's basically a little snippet of code, and you can put it, let's say, in your admin page in WordPress for your admin section for your theme, and it's this little like support icon. You click it, and it completely integrates with your knowledge base. And so you can start typing in a search thing, and all of a sudden knowledge base articles are coming up, and then you can click contact, and there's a contact form that pops up, and they can connect you directly to Help Scout. So it's basically like your entire support system can integrate right into your product with this new thing. I'm totally blanking on what they call it, but it just came out. So yeah, no, I use Help Scout, which is awesome. Easy digital downloads, which works really great with that as well. And there's so many great tools that are coming out that make this all really doable for the person that's not some genius. I mean, I'm not like a coding genius at all. And I think a lot of people are, they start off either as an internet marketer or a blogger, and they just kind of move into the realm of development, and WordPress makes that doable for somebody that's not, not this total coder. And then these tools kind of help, pull that in. Because I think what a lot of these products are they're the combination of developers, but there's enough people that aren't really totally developers that have really good ideas and have a good imagination and have kind of think outside the box, and you combine that. And I think that's where you come up with a lot of these really cool products, like some of these page builders that they were talking about. I mean, the way they integrate with the themes and everything, and the way it just makes it so much easier to build out your pages and things like that. I think a lot of that comes from having a wide variety of personalities being able to start developing products, because there's not this huge like level of expertise that you have to have up front to even start dabbling in it. So,
have you ever read Blue Ocean Strategy?
No.
Shut down. It's a really interesting book, and kind of what you're talking about now made me think of it. But the basic premise is that the red ocean, where the majority of us are, is the competition. We're just fighting to outdo each other on features or whatnot. Whereas the blue ocean is kind of looking beyond all that and figuring out, where is an area that your competition isn't even in, or recreating something. And as the kind of an example, he talked about Cirque du Soleil and how they reinvented the circus experience and got people to pay more money, and an incredibly different diversion from what the circus originally looked like. And now I'm talking about the circus on the podcast. But anyways.
Well, for example, what I was gonna say, for example, like I was talking about when I started doing the no coding design options, not only was that not something that people were doing at the time, but it was something that I was getting a lot of pushback. People were like, and so I guess you could say maybe that's them saying like, why are you over in the blue ocean over there? Nobody's over there. Like nobody even wants to be over there. And, and so, yeah, no, I mean, I get what you're saying. And it's the idea of basically finding that niche that has that wonderful combination of nobody's doing it and it's useful or something that people would want. It's kind of like with, people didn't realize they, like when they came out with a car, they thought they wanted faster horses or whatever. I can't remember the exact quote. But it's the idea of, because I mean, there's also the danger of going over to that area where nobody's there, and the reason they're not there is because nobody wants to be there. Like it's
There's
a bad place. Yeah. So it's really kind of finding that. But no, I get what you're saying, and that makes total sense.
Yeah, I think you totally found a blue ocean in your products there. Very cool. So if anybody, or not if anybody, for those of you who are listening live, if you want to ask any questions, do those or tweet those at hashtag OfficeFM or over on the Google Apps Q&A. And here you have someone who has been down the products road and can take your questions if you're pondering going that route. Okay, so wow, so we've covered a lot of territory. What do you do in terms of ongoing? Oh, excuse me, my phone. I have the thing where the phone will ring on my computer, which is really annoying when I'm in the middle of a conversation. So what do you do in terms of kind of that ongoing customer care or keeping in touch, that sort of thing?
Yeah. Well, when I first started with Frugal, one of the things was it was just me, and I only had, a few hundred customers or whatever. And I did all the support in the forum. And, that was another shift that took place over the last couple of years. It used to be always forum support, for the most part. And then it started to shift more and more toward email support. And then they started coming up with better tools for teams like Help Scout. And it was interesting because, there's a debate about kind of what's better, support, forum, or email. And I know, one of the huge advantages of email is not only can you share private information more easily and more confidently, but you can kind of track the conversation better. You don't have people coming in and asking random questions in the middle of your thread and all that kind of stuff. But the benefit of the forum is that there's more of a community aspect. People can pop in and answer the question before you even get to it, which can be really helpful for you and kind of stuff like that. So, you can kind of go both ways. I went the route of having a community forum, so people can still utilize that, but recognize that that's not really where we do support. They can, email us directly. When I first started, though, I was always in the forum, and there was such a great community aspect there. And I know I personally, have missed that some. I know a lot of our older members have missed that since I don't have time to be in the forum, as much as I used to be and everything because of the system. We changed the system around. So, I would say that, initially it used to be, a lot of personal emails, a lot of connection on the forum. But now being busier in different areas and everything and kind of changing the system around, I would say that I spend more time on Facebook or Twitter or, the newsletter. I just sent one out saying, I'm sorry for not emailing for like 9 months. So I'm not really great about that. And I'm working on more consistency with that. But just, I'm at a place right now where I find that I run into people on a more just kind of organic, like, I just posted something on Facebook and they ask a question. Next thing I know, I'm like direct messaging with them, and then we're working on something and I'm helping them, and whatever. But more often than not, it's more, a support question comes to me through our system and then it ends up to me and I start working with them or I pop on the forum and stuff like that. So, I think what my whole point in saying all that is just to say, when I first started, and I think this is probably pretty common, if you first start something and you have a small group of people, it's great because you can connect with your customers directly, and there's that like that direct passion and and everything. And I think both sides really appreciate that. But when you have thousands and thousands of customers, it totally changes that dynamic. And I don't know, a really bad joke just popped in my head about Dynamik.
I was thinking it too.
Yeah, of course, when you say that and you're like, don't say no pun intended. But anyway, this is whatever. But yeah, that I guess that that dynamic just kind of shifts, and you have to make the decision to turn it more into a kind of traditional business, or more of a traditional business with levels of support and kind of different ways of connecting and things like that. But you do kind of lose some of that personal connection. And I'm not saying everybody does. I think some people are really good at kind of keeping that. And I think that's really good if you can do that. The other thing too, I'll be straight honest, this is another thing I'll mention. When I started, 7 years ago, we had no kids. Now we have 3 boys, and so our first boy was born like maybe 2 months after Frugal came out, right? So you basically have we got a 2-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old, and so I would be completely lying if I said that having 3 boys born all throughout that time had no effect on my ability to do some of the things that maybe I could have done with my business had I not had that. So that's just the other aspect. If you're kind of if it's just you and maybe a couple of people helping with support and stuff, like with my setup, that one of the parts of that is if you have a family, that's just that's a part of kind of your setup, and you can either choose to kind of build a bigger team and have less direct connection, so there's less effect with things like that, or you can kind of keep that, they call it like a lifestyle business, I guess, where it's just kind of you, and you have more control, but you also have anything that affects you affects your business and things like that. So those are just kind of random kind of thoughts about that kind of thing. But I would say more than anything for me, I've been blessed with I have a business that I can keep consistent, and I can plug into it when I can, and I can be consistent with and everything. But what I can't do, and that's why, for example, you're talking about, any like huge features coming. I don't, have the ability at the moment to come up with some crazy new product and, and always have this cutting edge, thing or whatever. My system is just generally more consistency and staying with the times and connecting with other people. Like, if they have a product that works with mine, then I can kind of integrate, things like that. So, it's interesting. All I'm trying to do, I think more than anything, I'm just trying to kind of share just some of the things that I've gone through, because I know there's people out there that have kind of either tried their hand at products or services and, run into different struggles or different things like that. And, there's those few companies out there that do really well, and they just seem to do it so effortlessly, and they're always coming out with awesome stuff. And you're just like, oh man, why can't I, and, the rest of us, we plug away, we work hard, we have integrity, we put out stuff that's useful to people, and we try to make a living doing that. And that's pretty much what I do. So.
Well, I love that you said that. And I'm going to be honest, I really like to sleep. Going to bed is my favorite time of day. But were I to, spend less hours snoozing, I could be more productive and crank out more things, but it goes back to priorities, right? Right. In your case, your kids, and in my case, my bed, and everybody has their what's important. So what's coming down the line, and obviously, which sounds kind of funny coming off of the topic we were just talking about, but what do you see as the future for yourself and your business, or do you even know yet?
Yeah, of course, I don't know. I would, I honestly don't know. Because I feel like things have changed so much in the WordPress arena, and things have gotten. We were talking about how things have gotten better and better with the licensing and kind of making the whole WordPress premium product, arena more legit and kind of more of a solid business, sustainable business and everything. And so I think what we're starting to see is we're seeing more and more talent kind of come in and produce really, really good stuff. I've seen some pretty amazing stuff, not WordPress, but it wouldn't surprise me if it didn't make its way into WordPress. Just stuff where it just makes web design so ridiculously easy. Just stuff where they're like, yeah, you just like put these diodes on your head and you just think about it, and all of a sudden, boom, and you're just like, wow, and so I think I get excited about that kind of stuff because ultimately, I like to see progress made, you know, in you know, any area that we're in, and so I think that's awesome. You know, it's interesting because with my particular products, they're an interesting kind of a unique makeup, because they're, on the one hand, they are you know, no coding, design option type stuff, but on the other hand, I think a lot of people will say there's a bit of a learning curve with them, because they also are kind of retrofitted for those who are going to grow beyond just some no coding stuff. And so it's kind of they're kind of hybrid. Like, I guess instead of saying they, I'm going to specifically say Dynamik. It's kind of this hybrid tool that is accessible to the kind of the new user, but it's also fully usable for the kind of more seasoned developer. And so that in and of itself is something that I've kind of just, that's where it is. That's where it's been for a while. And so I've been focusing more and more on just refining what's already there, and then adding to it tutorials, and then just, you know, if something naturally comes along as far as a new feature, I totally add it in and everything. But my goal is always just to make what's there better, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and compete with some of these, you know, latest and greatest that have come out and they do this and that. And I honestly feel like what's going to happen is either I'm going to continue to go the way I'm going, and it's just going to naturally continue, and then I'm going to naturally hit some areas where it just makes sense to make huge leaps in development, or I'm going to continue going the way I'm going, and eventually it's just going to kind of fade into the sunset. I don't know. You know what I mean? And the reason, what I mean by that is I love what I do. And my goal is always to provide anybody who needs a web design tool, whether it's a web designer or a blogger or a marketer or whatever, try to provide them with the most reliable, usable, you know, like efficient tool for them, using with Genesis and everything, to build their business. I mean, I've had so many people come to me and say, man, you know, I make $100,000 a year as a web designer, and your theme is my primary tool, you know, things like that. And that's awesome. I love that. But like I said, I mean, it could be a year from now, somebody comes up with some crazy breakthrough, and I'm like, this is way beyond what I can provide. And I'll just keep doing what I'm doing until it just kind of fades, or it just, I keep progressing. And then, you know, like I said, what's happened with me is, you know, I'll kind of hit a plateau, and then all of a sudden something will just naturally make sense, and I'll just jump into, like, skins, for example. Skins for a long time were kind of this generic import, like you kind of import this zip file with some options, and that was kind of it. And then they naturally progressed into this entire almost theming system built into Dynamik, which is way better. And it just kind of naturally, you know, but I could not have told you that a month before I ended up coming up with the idea that that's what I was going to do. So that's just kind of what I've been doing. And I was going to say, I think one of the main things that I try to do is that I always err on the side of reliability. And so, because I know there's so many people that use my product for their business. And so if they have, say, 100 clients with my theme, I err on the side of consistency, reliability, and kind of incremental, you know, improvements, instead of kind of boom, you know, this is awesome, it's going to break your site, but it's going to be great once you fix it, you know. So that's kind of, you know, and I'm not saying that, you know, if you make a big jump, that's what's going to happen, but that's just kind of been my mindset. And you know, I think I've been in this long enough to know that anything can happen one year to the next, and I'm just thankful to continually be blessed with a business that supports my family and supports a lot of members in their businesses. So that's what I do.
Yeah, well, keep swimming in your blue ocean, brother.
Right, right.
Oh, well, we are at the end of our show, but want to let people know they can catch the replay of this over at officehours.fm or any of the episode archives for the show. We've got 78 other ones over there. Also, if you like the show, I would love a review over in Stitcher or iTunes. I'm told those are important, so I'm just passing that along. Yeah, and if you want to make sure that you're getting reminders of the show each week and a preview of the guest, go ahead and sign up for that over at officehours.fm/subscribe. So with all of those little housekeeping notes now dusted aside, Eric, where can people find you to say howdy?
Well, cobaltapps.com, Eric Ham on Twitter, or Cobalt Apps on Twitter, at Eric Ham or at Cobalt Apps. Facebook, we have a Cobalt Apps page. And if you want to, there's actually this isn't from me, this is from somebody else, but there's a Dynamik website builder like Facebook group or whatever that you have to kind of request to be a part of, but you can be a part of that. That was another thing. There's a lot of support that goes on in there from members just helping each other out. There's our community forum as well. You can register, even if you haven't bought the product, you can actually register on there and interact there as well. Or you can email me through contact form on cobaltapps.com, things like that. So
awesome. Well, thanks for your time and sharing your story.
Yeah, and thank you that's how many episodes? 79. 79. That's awesome. Yeah, and you're consistently doing this, and it's this is always so helpful for other people, and so we appreciate what you do here with Office Hours. So thanks a lot.
You betcha. All right, everybody out there, have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye.